C'era così una premonizione, non neanche ne parlavamo molto noi con Lomax e Carpitella, noi sentivamo che si doveva fare, almeno registrare quello che era, in modo che restasse almeno un ricordo. Però non avevamo la sicurezza, soprattutto che poi sarebbe andato così in fretta questa distruzione. Ancora non ci si rende conto, però è stato una vera una catastrofe.
Adesso questi chilometri di rete, passa il delfino, lo prendono, passa il pesce spada, il tonno, quello che passa poi prendono tutto queste reti qua. Perché era un sogno mio avere una barca grande così, da piccolino. Io quando sono grande mi faccio una barca, eppure una volta noi avevamo una barca di 10 metri e un alboretto piccolino, sai quanto ne vedevamo? 7-8 al giorno, 10 al giorno ne vedevamo pesce spada. Adesso con la barca di questa qua, giornati sani, torno a casa senza un pesce, non me la vai nemmeno per la nafta, ci hanno rovinato.
The voice of a shepherd soaring high and white over the sweet baritone of his bagpipe, this today is still the voice of Calabria, the peninsula that makes the toe of the Italian boot, an ancient land whose dark mountain forests and grey eroded hills hold more mysteries than any other part of Italy.
Era Ciccia Bullano, bella mia, chi sto boh? Qua non conosco, ma chi sta Ciccia Bullano? Questa era un'ora da Scerena. E io non ci sono io. Boh, ancora Basaderma, ancora io.
Questa è Azza Livia, chi sta?
Azza Livia.
Sì.
E Azza Ciccia Bullano. Ciccia Bullano.
I think what Alan got from hearing music from the Celts, the Hebrides, you know, that he heard music that was of a different source than British music. I think it must have just sort of gone into his mind, and because ultimately he would start thinking, and with the same with Italian music and Spanish music, he realised that there was more to this music than European or American music, that it was world music.
I don't think he realised how important it was going to be. But when he had got these recordings, not only ones he'd made, but other recordings coming from Russia, for example, and he was then able to listen and to decide how climate affects people, how the height of the mountains, or whether they're down in the bottom, affects people. All these things, he could then start to make a map, which was not based on geography, but was based on how the voice, very often what the voice is constrained. And the very first time he had the idea about this, and after he'd sort of been doing a number of records, he came and gave a lecture in London, which was entirely based on the idea that the music varied throughout the world according to sexual restraint, and how much freedom there was in sex in each country. And I mean, this was electrifying.
For instance, in Spain, I mapped Spain. I zigzagged back and forth across it, and I listened to the people in southern Spain, and they were all singing this kind of voice. But that was true not only in the love songs, it was in the funeral laments, it was in the lullabies, and it was in everything. And then as you moved further north, the voice that opened up, and with the basket moving, real wide and open. And I realized that in the south, the girls were locked away in almost purdah, and up north, the young men and the women were walking out in the meadows in the evening and courting freely without any censorship. And I said, hey, maybe that is why the voice tenses up.
Probably my most upsetting experience with him was when he was showing his work with Cantometrics to the American Folklore Society in Philadelphia. He gave this impassioned talk about the connection between the way you work, your gender relations, and the way you sing. And they tore him to ribbons because he hadn't done all of his homework, and because he made some very sweeping generalizations that you could find exceptions to. And he was devastated, absolutely devastated, because this was where he wanted to be, to validate his work in front of the experts.
Usually, scientists scoff at social scientists. It says, you're not scientists, you just have opinions. But to be a scientist, you must use numbers. So we got an IBM card. In those days, they used a piece of paper with 37 different categories. Is a song loud or soft? Is it sung high or low? Is it long or short? Does it have a lot of repetition or no repetition? Is it sung with a nasal tone of voice or sung with a throaty tone of voice? And he would put a little dot on this IBM card from 1 to 10, and when he had categorized 36 categories, he drew a line between them and called, this is the profile of that style of music.
I can't comprehend how anyone would try to map world music, you know, with all these different categories in it, when you realise there's so many thousands of types of folk music in the world. But that didn't deter him.
Why did he do it?
He was driven. I think he just loved this music so much. And I think he wanted to understand it perfectly himself.
I asked my nephew, who's an ethnomusicologist, who worked at Smithsonian many years, why is it that not everybody agreed with Alan? And he said, well, he makes leaps of intuition which he can't prove. Well, I said I'd trust Alan's intuition more than somebody else's proof of him, because he did have a great intuition.
early 90s, Alan was really rolling along at a very fast and furious pace, getting into his late 70s at that point. He wanted to finish all of his work before he could no longer work. Here's your medicine. Just at the beginning of September 95, he finally decided, after 7 years of negotiation, to sign this contract with Rounder Records to produce 100 CDs of his recordings. About 3 days later, I got a call down here saying that he was in the hospital and he'd had a terrible brain hemorrhage. He was totally demoralized, and he was crying all the time, but at the same time he was tremendously disturbed. You know, he was like almost like a wild beast. He was so upset. He was aware that he was incapacitated and that, you know, that he'd been checkmated, as it were, you know, by life.
Abbiamo scoperto che in America questo canto della gallinella, che è stato registrato a Feroleto tanti ma tanti anni fa, nel 1954, esiste questo CD in America e su questo CD c'è la gallinella. Adesso ascoltiamo, Shh. Sentite che voce. Giardino è nata vecchia giovane giardino. Sentite pues in the non trave la gallina.
I think our job is to represent all the submerged cultures in the world. I mean, you and your CBS and all the big amusement industries represent a way of silencing everybody. You know, communication was supposed to be two-way, but it's turned out to be basically one-way. From those people who can afford to own a transmitter, which costs a few $1 million, to the little guy who can afford to own a receiver that costs a few bucks. So there are millions of receivers and people at the other end and only a few transmitters, and I think that is one of the major, if not the major, human problem now, because everybody is off the air. I think the most important thing that anybody can do is to try to restore the balance. I call this cultural equity. The slogan is every culture with its equal time on the air and in the classroom. Cultural equity should join all the other important principles of human dignity, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom to work and live and enjoy yourself, and freedom for your culture to express itself. Because that's all we've got, you know. We're just culture.
Hush you bad, don't you cry. Go to sleep, little baby. When you wake, you shall have all the pretty little horses, blacks and bay, dapple and gray, coach and six a little horses, blacks and bay, dapple and gray, coach and six a little horses. Way down yonder in the meadow lies a poor little lamb, and the bee and the fly are picking out its eye. The poor little thing cried, man.
Yeah, that's the song. Yeah, that was the song.
Don't you cry, go to sleep, a little baby. When you wake, you shall have all the pretty little roses. Blacks and bay, dapple and gray, coach and six little horses.
E la taverna giù dallo giardino, e la taverna giù dallo giardino, per se cogliere l'aria tomba l'aiola, per se cogliere la fresca insalata. Pues in the non trove la gallina, pues in the non trove la gallina. Corre, corre la mia, l'aia tomba l'aiola, corre, corre la mia, vieni a mangiare.
in the piano, tamarind. Keep a ringing in the alum, tamarind. Keep a ringing in the alum, tamarind. tambourine. I want you to ring on.